All right, so we are going to take an old version of our digital Etch-a-Sketch and we're going to use it to get set up for our next set of notes. So frequently in our class, when we take notes, we'll have a portion of the notes, which is kind of like lecture where you're writing in your notebook, but there'll also be a portion of our notes, which is a demonstration. And we're kind of building a little baby mini app together. And that's what we're going to prepare for right now. So in order to prepare for this, I'm going to go into my projects and I'm going to go back to an older version of the digital Etch-a-Sketch. So for me, I ended up with a total of seven altogether, because I started counting with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And for me, it's version 4. Now, if you saved yours differently than mine, it might be a different version. Maybe start with version 4, and then this is what you're looking for. This is what I want to have in the version that we're going to use. I want to have my red, blue, green button down here. I want to have my camera button. I do not want to have a slider, so make sure there's no slider there. I suppose if you didn't save along the way, you could always go to your latest version, then just delete the slider. That would work too. But anyway, the other thing that I want to make sure I have is in my blocks view, I want to have the shake to erase feature. So I want to make sure that I do have the event handler for when the accelerometer senses shaking. Make sure I've got that, okay? So that's the key thing. As long as you have this piece in the code, pretty much any other version will work. So the first thing we're gonna do once you've got a version that has this piece is we're gonna do a save as, because we don't wanna goof up the app that we have and lose it to make notes. So I'm gonna do a save as, whoops, I clicked the wrong thing, save as, and we're going to save this with the name of variable notes. So variable underscore notes is what I'm going to name mine, variable notes. So I hit OK. All right, give it a second. So it's now saved it. It's changed the name. Should be good. Well, it's still doing it. I guess mine is slow today. There we go. All right, so I've got the new name up here. I've got the new app. And I've got the block view. Now, like I said, if you don't have version 4, if you didn't do enough save as, you can always delete stuff. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to delete everything except for the camera button, or the 2 camera buttons, the when dragged event handler, and the when shaking event handler. We're going to leave those 4. So if you're using a different version, everything else you're going to delete except for those 4. So for me, the red button event handler, I'm going to delete that. And you know that you can delete it by dragging it into the garbage can. You can also do a right click and hit delete that way. Of course, if you're on your Chromebook, then the way you do a right click is you use both fingers at the same time and delete it that way. All right. So in my block view, I should only have these 4 things. That's all I should have in my block view. Camera clicked, after click, accelerometer shaking, and canvas when dragged. All right, that's all I should have in my block view. In my designer view, I'm also going to delete everything except for my screen or my canvas and my camera button. So these color buttons, I'm just going to choose that whole entire horizontal arrangement. I'm going to delete that whole arrangement with all the buttons in it. Gone. If you've got a later version that has the slider or something like that, then delete that also. Okay? So this is what we should have. We should have just a canvas with a camera button on our home screen or in our designer view. And in our blocks, we should just simply have those 4 event handlers and nothing else. Okay, so once you've got that, make sure you do a save. So save your project. All right, now in the designer view, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make some changes to the screen. The first change we're going to make is we're going to take our canvas and we're going to make it smaller. So I'm going to change its height. Instead of being 80%, I'm going to make my height 50% instead. So I'm changing my height to be 50%. So that's the first change that I'm making. Okay. The next change I'm going to make is I'm going to need a total of 3 horizontal arrangements. So remember, horizontal arrangements are in your layout tab or tool drawer. We're going to pull that out. Now, in order for them to all fit, you're going to need to change what size they are. So I'm going to change their height to be 10%. A height of 10% is what I'm making. And I'm going to make the width fill parent. Okay. So I've got a height of 10%, a width of fill parent, and I'm going to do that for a total of 3 horizontal arrangements. So a height of 10% and a width that fills the parent. And I'm going to do that a total of 3 times. Height, 10%, width, fill the parent. Okay. Now the next thing is in all 3 of those, I'm going to drag out a label from my user interface. I'm going to find label, and I'm going to draw or bring out from the user interface a slider. And I'm going to do that for all 3 of them, a label and a slider, a label and a slider. Okay. Now the issue is with that many labels and sliders, when I start programming here in our notes, it's going to get confusing because they're all just called label slider. So I'm going to give them all a descriptive name so I can tell them apart. The ones in the top horizontal arrangement, I'm going to call them red label and red slider. So I'm just going to click on that, change the name to red underscore label and red underscore slider. And the one in the middle, I'm going to change into greens. So I'm going to change the name to green underscore label and green underscore slider. And then finally, the one on the bottom, I'm going to make those blues. So blue underscore label and blue underscore slider. Okay, so I've changed all those names. Now I also want to change some of their properties. So I'm going to do the labels first. For my 3 labels, I want all of them to have a width of 12%. So all 3 labels, I'm going to make the width be 12%. All 3 of them, a width of 12%. Okay, so I click on the label. Over here for width, I'm going to click on 12%. Okay, so I do that for all 3 of them. Also for all 3 labels, I'm going to change their text to be what the label is. So for the first label, I'm going to change the text to say red. It doesn't have to say red label, just saying red is good enough. For my green label, I'm going to change the text to say green. Whoops, that's not how you spell green. There we go. And then for my blue label, I'm going to change the text to say blue. Okay, so all 3 of my labels, they say the color that they're going to represent, the color that they're named for. I also need to make some changes to my sliders. So I'm going to make the same changes to all my sliders. The first thing is I'm going to make the width fill the parent. I'm going to do that for all 3 sliders, make the width fill the parent. And then the other thing I'm going to do for all 3 sliders is I'm going to change the minimum and maximum values. So for all 3 sliders, I'm going to make my maximum value be 255. And I'm going to make my minimum value be 0. And I'm going to do that for all 3 of my sliders. So for my green slider, maximum value 255, minimum value 0. For my red slider, maximum value of 255, minimum value of 0. Okay, so I've got all 3 of those things adjusted. That's all I'm going to do to my designer view. So I'm now done in my designer view. I have a canvas that's only 40% or 50% tall. I've got 3 horizontal arrangements. All of my horizontal arrangements are 10% tall and fill the parent for their width. I've got 3 labels, one of them named red, one green, one blue. All of them have a width of 12% and a text that matches its name. And then I have 3 sliders. All 3 sliders have a width that fills the parent, a maximum value of 255, and a minimum value of 0. Okay, so once you've made those changes, you should be good. The block view, as long as you have these 4 event handlers, you're done there. Everything else we're going to do in the block view, we'll do together as a class once we start our notes. Okay, so once you've made these changes in your designer view, make sure you have that saved, and then just hold on for a minute until we start the notes as a class. Thanks for watching.